Do not forget to subscribe to Rajshri Food, and for regular recipe notifications, click on the bell icon. Hey guys, it's Varun Inamdar and welcome to Rajshri Food. Today, let's head back to basics. Today, let's see how to process tomatoes. Well, tomatoes possibly are one of the most universal used ingredients after potatoes and onions. So today, let's see how we can process those. Well, tomato, for the uninitiated, is actually a berry which grows on a vine. Well, the vine name is Solanum lycopersicum. Well, something that is good to know, you do not ought to know this. What is important while processing any fruit or any vegetable is the sharpness of your knife. Well, in kitchens, in hotel kitchens, usually we check the sharpness of the knife, something like this, by checking how sharp the edge of the knife is. Another way or a method of checking the sharpness of the knife is by cutting a tomato. A tomato being a soft fruit or a soft vegetable, we need to ensure that the shape while cutting does not change, and that is the beauty of cutting tomatoes. It has a pocket of seeds like so, and on the top it has an eye which extends into a stalk which attaches to the vine, and this way it has a membrane. The first thing is to cut it like so to just understand how a tomato looks. Well, the flavor of tomato is possibly one of the most complicated flavors because it's a combination of acids and sugars. It's actually a balance between acids and sugars. The first cut of a tomato is chopped tomatoes. For that, we need to cut the tomato into half, and then we need to cut it lengthwise. Run a knife like so horizontally and cut this once again in a crisscross pattern. With this, you get the first cut of tomato, and that is chopped tomatoes. The next cut of tomato is a dice. For that, you need to quarter this like so. And then you could cut this into a half or into 3 parts. Well, this is known as a diced tomato. The next cut is a quarter. For that, well, this is an eye which you could optionally remove like so. This is called the cap of a tomato. Well, you could choose to cut it or you could discard it. That's a personal choice. All you need to do is cut it into half and then cut that half into 2 more halves. The next step is a sliced tomato. Keep the tomato absolutely firm. With these fingers, you need to create a little bit of a margin so that your knife just keeps sliding carefully. You could choose to cut a thin slice or a thick slice. That depends on how much you want to move the fingers back and forth. The next step is de-seeding a tomato, and we'll club that with another cut, which is cutting into juliennes. The first thing is to cut this tomato into a half, then into a quarter. Very carefully, you need to discard this portion that has the pocket of seeds. You will notice in this cut is that when you are actually de-seeding this or removing the core, you are also subconsciously slicing off the eye of the tomato. Well, this one is also used in a lot of Chinese preparations. You could also cut this into a half like so. Well, this is also a cut that you could use in a lot of stir fries, or you could use this in your salads like a fattoush or a kachumbar. So let's keep this aside for now. For a julienne, you could either turn it like that or like that. What I prefer is keeping it face side up. You need to cut this into thin strips like this, and this is known as a julienne tomato. For this cut, I personally prefer using just the tip of the knife. Let's move on to the next cut or the next technique, which is known as blanching. What is critically important in this step is to core and remove the eye of the tomato. For that, you need to actually hold the knife, a small paring knife or a vegetable knife like so. You just need to hold the tip and you need to core it by turning the tomato like so. Well, that's how you core the tomato. You get this conical shaped eye out, and what you need to do is core the tomato like so. You need to just give it a gash, like a crisscross, absolutely just lightly, just on the skin. Do not let the knife run deep. Like if you notice, it's just like 1 mm deep into the tomato, which is just skimming over the surface of the tomato. That's how. Let's continue with another few pieces of tomato. While we are doing this, what I had also done is simultaneously kept a pot of boiling water. And the next step is to drop these tomatoes in that. We need to keep these tomatoes precisely for 60 seconds in this pot of boiling water, or till you notice that the skin just kind of begins to swell up, something like this. If you notice this closely, the skin has just kind of swollen up here. And this is the time when these tomatoes need to go straight in ice cold water. With the thermal shock that the tomatoes will now get, the skin will automatically start releasing. Allow these tomatoes to cool down, and that would take somewhere around 2 to 3 minutes. Because of the thermal shock, the skin will start releasing like so, but we would, with the help of a knife, assist it further. Well, before we move ahead, let me talk a little about these discarded bits. Well, this should not be thrown in the garbage can. These pockets of seeds could be planted in your kitchen garden, and there you would have these lovely tomatoes growing. Another trick of using this, like what we used to do in commercial kitchens, is you use this while making brown sauces. You do a little bit of a deglazing, you add in your herbs, add in your spices, add in your tomatoes, saute till they get you the caramelized effect, and then you can deglaze it with wine, leading to a brown sauce. Let's move on to the next step, which is peeling and de-seeding, which is a step generally used in conjunction with blanching. For that, of course, whatever peel comes out on its own does come out. But otherwise, you take the tip of your knife, hold it like so with your thumb. The next step is to cut this into a half. With the help of a spoon, you need to remove the seeds. Now this is known as a blanched, peeled and de-seeded tomato. Similarly, I've blanched, peeled and de-seeded all the tomatoes. Let's transfer this into a blender jar and let's run this into a fine puree. Well, this is a tomato puree that you could generally use for instant or immediate cooking. Let's transfer this in a bowl. Similarly, let's puree the other tomatoes. But the purpose of making this puree the second time is to show you how to store the tomato puree for later use. Let's transfer this into a kadhai, a wok or any vessel. To this, I'm adding in a tablespoon of vegetable oil, and this will work as a preservative. Let's add in just a touch of salt, and to balance the acidity, some sugar. Just a few grains, not too much. We do not need to sweeten this puree. And this now needs to be cooked on a high flame till it's reduced to almost 1/4 the original quantity. With this, most of the moisture in our tomato puree has dried up. Let's transfer this in a bowl. This tomato concentrate now needs to cool down completely to room temperature. Then you could bottle this in a sterilized jar. This would stay perfectly well for 6 months refrigerated. Just remember to use a clean and dry spoon every time you use the tomato concentrate. I sincerely hope this tomato tutorial video is helpful for you in your daily home kitchens. Do not forget to like and share the video and subscribe to Rajshri Food.